On today's show, is Alex Ovechkin poised for a breakout season? And is a Thompson Lindgren tandem the right idea? We'll discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called the Capitals Minute Cast, available wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, Brandon and Dan of the What the Puck podcast join me once again as we talk about Alex Ovechkin. Can he have another great season? Listen, he got off to his slowest start last year, turned on the Jets in the second half of the season. What can we expect from Ovechkin? We'll talk about that a little bit later. We will talk about the Lindgren and Thompson tandem. Was that the right idea? And then we'll talk about Chris Patrick as the new general manager. And is he the right guy to take this Capitals team to the next level? Next, my conversation with Brandon and Dan. When I saw all these moves, I didn't know what this was all about. I thought, wow, Brian McClellan is just coming out of the gate swinging. This is BMAC at his best, but he had bigger plans. And I think in his mind's eye, where he was looking down the football field, I think that he saw the transition to Chris Patrick, who was then the associate general manager. But to be clear here, he is a guy that has plenty of history with the Capitals. He was the guy that was in charge. He was the go-between between Hershey and the Capitals. He was involved with scouting. He was involved in player acquisitions, that kind of thing. I think at the end of the day, BMAC looked at this team and he thought to himself, there's holes in this lineup, and I don't want to give Chris Patrick a rental car with an empty tank of gas. I'm going to load this thing up. Hell, I'm going to get a car wash. I'm going to get it detailed. I'm going to give him the best team that he possibly can. So he plugged all those holes and he did something crazy. He took a promotion. He's still within the Capitals organization. So, if he ever needs to phone a friend, he's just right down the hallway. So Brandon, what were your thoughts about Chris Patrick getting that promotion and then Brian McClellan taking a step upward within the organization? What were your thoughts on Chris Patrick?
I was surprised that it happened as it did. I really thought Brian McClellan would be sticking around through Ovechkin's contract. I figured that he would be maybe exiting after Ovechkin left. He wanted to see the end of that. But I think the way you just put it really states it very well. He set this team up to win this season, and then he's still with the organization. I always like internal hires, no matter what, just because it is good to have someone that is familiar with your players already. It's good for these guys to know who's got the strength and who doesn't. The fact that Chris Patrick is here and he was the go-between between the Hershey Bears and the Washington Capitals really says something. I mean, the Hershey Bears, 2-time back-to-back Calder Cup champions. Obviously, they've got some good stuff cooking there. I'm intrigued to see if he's going to be talking to Spencer Carberry a little bit more about incorporating those Hershey Bear players when it's necessary to bring them up to the Washington Capitals. I think that's something that Brian McClellan has stepped away from GMs in the past. He keeps the Hershey Bears and the Capitals kind of separate, and it's only on an emergency basis to somebody get called up and stay there. I think, Martin Ferravari might be the only guy that's kind of been able to break through that system. Henrik Lapierre, he's been up and down, back and forth throughout the Caps and the Bears. But it is it was shocking that it happened now, but obviously I think, Chris probably had some interest in other places. They didn't want him to go anywhere. And I mean, Brian McClellan got a promotion. I don't think he's going to be fighting that or anything, worried about that at all.
So as Alex Ovechkin goes, so goes the Capitals. Generally the case. You take a look at last season, the Capitals struggled to start the season, and they found a way to pull it out and make it to the playoffs just when Alex Ovechkin was turning it on. As I alluded to start the show here, that Alex Ovechkin started the season only having 9 goals going into the All-Star break, finishing with 31 goals. Ovechkin now has 853 goals, 41 more goals to surpass Wayne Gretzky as the NHL's all-time scoring leader. He has a contract through the 25-26 season. Dan, I'm going to ask you, is Alex Ovechkin going to be able to catch Wayne Gretzky under his current contract, or will it require an extension of some sort?
Ooh, I thought you were going to ask me a different way for this question. This contract, yes. He's got 2 years. I'm sorry, you said 41? Is that the right number?
Yes. He has 41
okay.
more goals to surpass Wayne Gretzky, who has 894.
So not only do I think he's going to catch him under this contract, I think there's a very good chance he catches him this upcoming season. He had 31 goals after only having 9 throughout a significant portion of the season. So what if that 9 had doubled and then he got the same amount afterwards? He would have been, that would put him in, oh God, you guys are making me do math really late, or I'm making myself really.
That's what I was doing. I'm figuring it out here. I'm like,
wait,
yeah.
hold on. I got to carry the 3. No, he would have, it would have been at like, I don't know, right around 38, 39, 40 goals, right? So we're talking about like 1 away. I think there's a very good possibility, especially if, I think there's going to be rotation in terms of, and there's going to be, Carberry loves moving guys around on different lines. So not on cap friendly anymore, but you can kind of do that thing with, I think he's going to see Dubois with him for a bit. I think Strome with him for a bit. I think the power play with these guys is definitely going to be better. I think with Chukrin out there, I think he's definitely going to get more goals. I would not be shocked at all. It'll be obviously later in the season, but as we're getting towards March, April, he could be real close.
Yeah, and he's actually talked about playing 1 more season, but in the KHL. And, he said that he has no desire for any kind of extension. But you got to think, say for something crazy, say he was 5 or 10 goals short of Gretzky. I mean, I don't know what I would say if he's like, yeah, I mean, that's your guys. You're all into me catching Gretzky. Me, I just want to hang it up. But I think that he would, at the end of the day, if it was within shooting distance, I think that he would go after, get an extension to go after Gretzky. All right, so after the break, we'll talk about the net minding situation for the Capitals. Listen, I thought it was going to be Hunter Shepard and Charlie Lindgren, but Logan Thompson was added to the mix. Was that the right idea? I'll discuss straight ahead. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And listen, guys, life is busy. I get that. Oftentimes I tell myself, I'm going to get tickets to see the Nationals, and then I forget about it. Well, fear not, as tickets are actually cheaper closer to first pitch. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon TV Fires app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team. It is every day. So the other move, I love talking about netminding on this show, I think more than anything else. I don't know why. I just always have a fascination with netminders in general, but I had it sketched out, I think, a lot like a lot of other Capitals fans. Charlie Lindgren, and this is going to be the year for Hunter Shepard, Shep Daddy. He's earned it all the way from UMD all the way up to the Hershey Bears. Oh, but pump the brakes on that, because the Capitals acquired Logan Thompson, a guy, bargain basement price, $700,000. So you take a look at Charlie Lindgren, you take a look at Logan Thompson, both netminders on a contract year. Clay Stevenson, get going in the bullpen. It might be your turn here in the future. Talk about that with me here, Dan. What was your thoughts about the Capitals acquiring Logan Thompson when it seemed like a kind of a slam dunk to go with Charlie Lindgren and Hunter Shepard?
I think I was kind of same as you, where I had it mapped out. I was like, okay, so it's likely going to be Shepard as the backup. Lindgren had a really good year. He's the guy. But I can understand why they made this move, because while we're all looking at this as Caps fans going, Lindgren's the guy. He's the guy after I've only done it for 1 year. And we've seen plenty of goalies or defensemen or forwards in the past who come out and they're like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. He's going to be the best player ever. And then in 6 months, you're like, who is this again? And why do we give him this much money? And they're players that they're a flash in the pan kind of thing where it works out for 1 year. I'm not saying it's going to be Lindgren, and obviously as a Caps fan, I'm hoping that's not the case. I think they went out and they made this move for two reasons. One, they needed a second goalie, and they seem to kind of like this 1A, 1B kind of thing where it's going to be back and forth, and they like competition. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think they also like the fact that he doesn't cost a lot of money. Not that Hunter Shepard was going to, but he's a proven goalie already in the NHL. And while Shepard has played well, you have to play more to be proven. Like I wouldn't even say Lindgren's a proven goalie at this point because he's only done it for a season. So I like the move. I think both these guys are going to be free agents as of right now after this season. So both of them are playing for a new contract, be it here or somewhere else. So both of them, I have to imagine, it's in their best interest to play really well in front of what looks like a really good defense. And so all of this benefits the Washington Capitals and the organization. And at some point during the season, I think it's likely who's ever playing better will start to get more games. And it may go back and forth in terms of like, well, Thompson's playing better now, but then, oh, he's got an injury or he's struggling a little bit. And then Lindgren kind of gets more games. But at some point, they're going to have to make a decision and sign one of these guys to a deal. And I think at that point, I mean, we would have said this a couple of weeks ago or months ago and be like, oh, well, it's going to be Shepard's turn. So maybe it's next year it's Shepard's turn when they decide to let the other guy go. But now that I've said that, they'll go out and trade or sign some other goalie to be the backup, and Hunter Shepard will be really angry up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. But I love the move. I think it made a lot of sense, and I'm excited to see what he brings to this team. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's the one, Logan Thompson, that is, he's the one getting a new contract first.
Yeah, an interesting take there. A lot of people thought that Charlie Lindgren was going to be on the move at the trade deadline just to maximize his return. But then, as it turns out, that wasn't the case, of course, as he's still on the team. And to your point there, Charlie Lindgren was really good last season. But let's rewind time a little bit more to the season before. He was good in the month of December, and then someone turned the burner off on his career on his season, and he kind of dissipated after that. So to your point there, you want to see more consecutive successful seasons year after year, because say for some reason Charlie Lindgren did falter, then all the pressure is on Hunter Shepard. And I think that is a bit unfair as well. At a later podcast, I think that maybe Darcy Kemper didn't get a really fair shake either, just based on the fact, talking about it here briefly, is he was the netminder once Spencer Carberry first came here, when the new systems were being rolled out. And he said on breakdown day, guys, I found my game. I worked on my game with a goalie coach. I just never got a chance to prove myself again. The Capitals were in this win now mode that we must win every game. And I never got a shot again. I'm really better than that. And his pedigree speaks to that, winning a Stanley Cup not so many years ago. All right, so coming up after the break, we'll talk about the other movement that took place for the Capitals. Is it enough to make them competitive? We'll discuss straight ahead. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And listen, there is still baseball being played right now. There are plenty of things to bet on. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to fanduel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. As we take a look at the Capitals this past season, Spencer Carberry talked about it as much as this team was sketched out a certain way. Nick Backstrom was supposed to be here. TJ Oshie, Evgeny Kuznetsov. As we know, Nick Backstrom peeled away. He tried to do it. I think that he saw that hip resurfacing procedure didn't respond quite the way that he had hoped for. And I think that he thought that he was standing in the way of progress for Connor McMichael, who was kind of breathing down his neck. So he did the noble thing, I guess I'm going to say, and step away from hockey, which presented an opportunity for Connor McMichael. So you take a look at that. You take a look at Kuznetsov. We take a look at TJ Oshie, who we don't still at this point know what's going to happen. Brandon, let's talk about the future. Next season, we don't have to look too far into the future. I think it's a safe bet to say that Nick Backstrom is going to play, or he's going to spend the last year of his contract on the LTIR. What are your thoughts about Oshie? Do you think that, is there any remote possibility that he comes back? Some of the things that he said is he wants some promises, some assuredness that he's going to be okay. I don't know if there's a doctor that's going to sign off on that. What are your thoughts on Oshie, and will he play out or have another season with the Capitals?
This Capitals team, when Oshie is healthy, is a better Capitals team because Oshie is on that team. So I think he has the heart to do it. I really do. I think he's got the talent to do it, but I don't know if he's going to find that assurance that he's going for with all these different doctors. I believe he was at a golf tournament recently during this off season and said that he's already gone to a couple doctors, more than probably 3, and all of them have not been able to give him that assurance that he needs. So, I mean, it would be a terrible thing for him to go out that way and not go out the way that he would want to. But I don't see him playing this year, unfortunately. I really hope that this team can still bring him along on trips and, maybe the trip out west to Western Canada, let him travel with the team, because I think he has so much knowledge and he's such a mentor to a lot of these players. I mean, I remember when Shane Gersek was a part of this team and it was Oshie's Cup day. Shane Gersek, he didn't have his own day with the Cup, so Oshie invited him to his. Like, he's a team player. He's a team guy. He's so good at that camaraderie. I think that a lot of these young guys can learn a lot from TJ Oshie, but as far as being a physical presence on the ice, I just don't see it in the cards for Oshie. And that's really heartbreaking to say, because, I mean, he is such a great guy. He did so much for this team when he came in. I mean, I think it's really going to suck, but I don't see him taking the ice.
And he's one of the rare players, I guess I got to say, that I've yet to hear anyone say anything negative about him. All positive. Everyone loves him. To see him in person is to truly appreciate him. I've seen him a handful of times in person playing live at games, and I think that he's a dynamic playmaker, and he's that competitive guy. He's the guy that said at family functions that he plays competitive football in the front yard with his relatives, and that when they wrestle for real. And he looked at the beat writers and said, "What, you don't wrestle your relatives at Thanksgiving?" So he is a guy that brings that compete level all the time. And if he does step away from hockey, I get it. I heard about how bad his life was, having to sleep on the floor, urinating in a bottle. That's not living your best life, and I wish him nothing but the best if he does walk away or if he decides to play another season. Dan, let's close it up here and talk about taking a look into your crystal ball as we look at the 24-25 season. It's not as far away as it appears. It's right around the corner. Do you see the Capitals being better than they were last year? You know, you take a look at the moves, you put them in your calculator, and you hit the equals button. It's like, yes. But is that actuality? Did the Capitals get better, or did they plug holes with some meh players?
I love the way you put it. Yes, I think they're a better team. I think offensively they have more weapons than they had last year. They have more goal scorers. When you go back and you look at this roster from last year, and you're looking at it and you're going, who's scoring the goals not named Alex Ovechkin? Strome was a surprise, a great surprise. But outside of Strome, Ovechkin, and Wilson, you're not looking at any of the other forwards and going, okay, well, if we need a goal, he can put one in. But now you're looking at it and you're going, okay, well, if I'm the opposing team, I got to shut down that first line. Let's say it's Ovechkin, Dubois, and Wilson. I stopped that. Oh, wait, no. Now I got to deal with Mangiapane. I got to deal with Strome, who lit it up last year. And then I got to deal with McMichael or Lapierre on the second line wing, someone with speed and energy. So now you're like, oh, okay, hold on. We got to spread the wealth a little bit here. Defense, we got to stop these guys. Now you're looking at a third line who's coming at you with Protas, and then Lapierre, McMichael, and then I'm forgetting who would be on the right side on that one. But you've got more players who can score. And then you're looking at the defense and you're going, oh, God, I got John Carlson. I got to deal with Captain America over here. And then, oh, there's Chukrin right across the ice, likely from him. And then you're going to the next line and you got Sandin. Oh, hopefully you can stay healthy. And then, and this sounds so weird, but do you have Martin Ferravari, who probably could be your first pairing defenseman, on your third pairing? Like, if you're the opposing team, you're like, they got weapons all over the place now. Yeah, I mean, given everything has to work out, but you could say that about every single team in the NHL. But the reality is, on paper, this is a better team. What you need to see now is that your coach can gel all of this together into a fully functioning team for most nights. And what we saw last year was that Carberry made a playoff team out of what on paper looked kind of meh, I think is how you put it, Dan. And so, yes, I definitely think that this is a better team. I think definitely on paper, and I think we're going to see that on the ice because they brought in players that have done it before, and they are doing this with a coach who got something out of not nothing, but not a lot.
All right, listen, guys, Brandon, Dan, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals. Brandon, why don't you tell everyone where we can find your work?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are What the Puck podcast. We are available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can check us out over on Facebook, facebook.com/whatthepuckpod. We also have a YouTube channel where we post up shorts and reels from our show. You can check us out, Brando Cash Pods. And we have an Instagram as well, Brando Cash Pods _reels. It's where you can check us out. If you'd like to follow me on X, you can follow me at Brando Cash. But Dan and I, we're entering our 12th season as What the Puck on our podcast, and we love talking Caps hockey. Thank you so much for having us on. This has been a blast. But yeah, if you'd like to check out What the Puck, that's where you can listen to us.
All right, Brandon and Dan, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, and I want to thank all of you for listening and watching this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel, available on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app and on YouTube. Oh, but there's more. If you're a fan of other DC sports, we have Locked On Nationals, Commanders, and Wizards. So no matter what major DC sport it is, Locked On has got you covered. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.